So my radical idea is that we need to be engaging teenagers in all the decisions, in their schools, in the programs that they participate in, and in the communities in which they live. And I came to this radical idea from a transformative experience I had as a teenager. I was born in a working-class family in Aurora, Colorado. My dad, our sole caregiver, told us to keep our head down, work hard, and generally we didn't ruffle any feathers. Needless to say, I was never in the principal's office. At 15, my mom passed away. She died from a mix of heavy cigarette use, anorexia nervosa, and bipolar disorder. She was a danger to all in her path, and she lived her life in and out of psychiatric hospitals and jail cells. So at 16, my counselor, Judy Heidemann, she called me into her office one day, and I thought, oh no, am I in trouble? But I wasn't. She invited me to write a grant that was for the Get Real program, Colorado's youth movement against the tobacco industry. I wrote and received my first public health grant at 17. And the Get Real program believed that you didn't have to be 18 or 21 or 35 to make a difference. The Get Real program believed that you could make a difference right now. They taught me the power of my voice. I healed from wounds that I didn't even know that I had. And I was involved in the Get Real program for 10 years, as a teenager, as a college-age trainer, and then as a staff person. And I helped teens all across the state, from Yuma to Lake City, pass local laws. I'm going to repeat that. I helped teenagers pass laws to support public health. They deserve all that. So, unfortunately, in 2010, as a result of the fiscal crisis, the Get Real program ended. I had learned to ruffle some feathers, we did sit-ins, and yet the program closed its doors. This was a loss I felt deep into my soul. But I realized that the power of the Get Real program, it wasn't in the t-shirts or the conferences, that the power of the Get Real program, it was inside of me. And so with that, I've been crazy passionate, a really stalwart advocate for ensuring that young people get to learn the power of their voice. But there's a problem with this idea. And the problem, unfortunately, is so many of you. It's adults. Because adults consciously or unconsciously prohibit young people from participating fully as full citizens in their lives. The systematic subordination of young people as a targeted group who have little access to power and are not allowed to participate in civic life is called adultism. Adultism pervades our laws and our policies and is perpetuated by the media. What you might be thinking right now is, oh no, not me, Heather. I'm chill, I'm good, I'm kind to young people. Or perhaps you're thinking, she totally made this up. But I didn't, I promise. Many people have talked about adultism. I'm going to ask you to check yourself and answer some of the following questions. Have you ever said any of the following? You won't understand till you're older. I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. Which was a quote said to a teen I worked with. Or, wow, Cecilia, you're so articulate or smart or strong for your age. Or have you ever said any or thought any of the following? Teens, they're so lazy. Why don't they just do something? Or, all they care about is their smartphones and Snapchat. As if adults don't like their smartphones. So, the media is replete with negative depictions of teenagers. And it's unfortunate because adults who don't have teenagers in their lives rely on media's interpretation of teenagers. And adults make laws in our country. And so if you Google teenager and meme, that's what you'll find. This is just a small sampling. And so adults who don't have teens in their lives rely on these images to make their beliefs about teenagers. And young people are also prohibited from meaningful roles in civic life. Young people, by conservative estimate, pay about 5% of our sales tax. They're pretty good consumers. And that's millions of dollars of both state and federal sales tax each year. And yet young people, they cannot vote, and they cannot run for elected office. So effectively, they are taxed without representation, which is something we fought for in the American Revolution. Right? All right. And unfortunately, young people, they internalize this oppression, and it makes them feel powerless. It makes them doubt their own abilities. It can even lead to depression. So perhaps what you're thinking right now is, but wait a second, Heather. There's brain science. Young people's brains, they're under development. Right? Heard that. But I will argue that brain science and brain size and shape have long been used as a tool for oppression. It wasn't that long ago that it was argued that women's brains were smaller and that's why they shouldn't vote. Or perhaps that African Americans' brains were smaller and that justified a lot of horrific acts before the Civil Rights Movement. So while I'm not going to argue brain science with you today, I will say that brain science has always been used as a tool to other people. And I would actually argue that teenagers' brains are uniquely developed. There is no other time than during adolescence that we have the amazing capacity to challenge the status quo. Young people have a significant amount of emotional intensity, which can be channeled for amazing things. They're creative, so creative. And they really strive to be engaged in their communities. So we have a huge pool of untapped talent. I think we need to tap into them. And I hope you're thinking that right now too. Because I have some things that you can do to disrupt adultism in your everyday life. The first thing that you can do to disrupt adultism is to check in with yourself. What are some of your negative beliefs about teenagers? If you saw a teenager sitting on a park bench, what's your go-to reaction? One thing that you can do is something called the mirror test. The mirror test, developed by John Bell, says, would I treat an adult this way? Or would I say these words to someone I really valued and respected? The second thing that you can do is listen and be curious about young people and their lives. I promise they're going to surprise you. So I work in a youth program in Denver's public housing neighborhoods. And last December, we were asking the teenagers, if you could change anything about this world, what would you change and why? We went around the room, and Franco, who was sitting in the back of the classroom, leaning against the bookshelf, arms in his pockets, hoodie all the way up around his face, seemingly disengaged, says, Miss, if I could change anything about this world, I'd make it so that I could have both a place to live and heat. Because right now, all I have is a place to live, and it's sure cold. Young people are amazing. They don't judge what they're going to say. They tell us the truth in this world. And Franco's not the exception. In fact, the teens that I have with me today and the teens I work with every single day are all amazing and have amazing talents to share with you all. So the last thing that you can do is to advocate for young people. Advocate for their participation in the schools that your children go to or the organizations that you support. You can ask, in what ways could young people be engaged here? And then if you're saying, but Heather, I don't know where to get young people, I promise, you don't have to drive up with a van marked candy. All you have to do is go and partner with the place where young people are for the majority of their day. Young people are in schools, by and large. And so your organization can partner with schools and leverage both of your missions to ensure that young people are having authentic engagement. So young people such as myself at 16 and my neighbor who's 13, this is Julia, they're standing on a bridge. Young people, they're ready to be engaged. They're hungry. So my question to you is, will you reach out to them?